I'm a K-I-N-G, baby, I'm all you need. In the off-white Rari, baby, we run the streets. I'm a K-I-N-G, Westside royalty. I'm a K-I-N-G, baby, that's all you need. I'm a K-I-N-G, baby, I'm all you need.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to my podcast, Get It. You're Stephen Beseda, and today my guest is a good friend of mine, Cary Hokama, and we're going to be talking today about just the journey of taking licks in life to being able to find that success. And Cary has been in a lot of different businesses and industries where he's found that success, and he continues to do such. And so being able to hop on today, it's a blessing to have you on, my man. Thank you so much for taking the time to join today. And I love the story. My big thing is the journey.
Yeah.
Right. And you're an entrepreneur, you've had multiple successful businesses. So when did you know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Was that something that you knew you wanted to do, you didn't know you wanted to do? And then you just take us through that journey a little bit and how you kind of started that journey, and then where you're at now, and how people can follow you in that journey, of course, as you continue on your path of success here.
Most definitely, man. Thanks for having me on your show, brother. I appreciate that. The journey is always, the illustrious. Sometimes people always want to adopt the idea that journey is everything, which it is. I feel like the last few years have been an evolution of what that journey really means to me. You know what I mean? So I would say that I was always an artist and a creative. So ever since 7, I wanted to be either like Michael Jackson or a Michael Jordan, who was an artist on the basketball court, right? Little do we know that even if you're a creative and or artist, you have to, that becomes entrepreneurship, because you figure things out as you go. And as we all know, the road to entrepreneurship is just really putting out a bunch of fires, figuring out ways to help people solve problems. And money is just a byproduct of you adding value into people's lives and helping people solve their problems. And so I would say the real journey started maybe about 9 years ago, when my wife and we decided to quit our jobs to do a nonprofit organization. And when that abruptly fell through, I was like, shoot, I'm not going to go and get another job. I told my wife, I'm going to do everything that I can to build my own journey, my own road to success. And that's how I started eventually my fitness and my real estate business. And that really parlayed into personal transformation and going into entrepreneurship as a speaker, as a podcaster, as a content creator, as an author. So for the past 4.5 years has been creating content, being an entrepreneur, figuring out how and where I can add value for the exchange of income and money, and creating more value by really scaling my voice, my art, my product, and my services. So it's been awesome, man. It's just been constantly figuring out who it is that you exactly want to be. That sets the precedence on where you move towards your future, is to identify your future self.
Right.
And that gives you the blueprint on what you have to do every single day to get there.
So when you were going through that process, so you get your nonprofit, it fails. When people have businesses fail, a lot of times they just give up and they go and they're just like, well, it's not for me. And they go and they just get a normal job. And you and I have known each other long enough. We've seen a lot of that in our industry. One of the big things is Cary and I actually trained at the same gym for a long time before I opened up my gym business. And okay, go to mama, honey. And so a lot of the trainers that we knew, a lot of them actually tried to go do their own thing too. A lot of them tried to open up their own gyms and failed. A lot of them went on to try and do other things to grow their own businesses, and we saw them fail. And a lot of them went and just got jobs working for other people and just kind of gave it up. And having been on both sides of the coin, right? I've had some businesses that I launched, and maybe I had too many different things on my plate, and so I just had to pick and choose what I really wanted to invest into. And then really with the coronavirus now and how negatively it impacted my gym business and having to close that down for the time being. You know, there has been that question mark even in my own head a little bit of like, well, you know, I lost a major stream of income. You know, I have my basketball club, thankfully, and I still have some consulting I do, and, you know, my podcast, and I'm authoring my second book and stuff now. But it's just like, sometimes it's easy. Like, I got a couple of phone calls for job opportunities, and it's like, man, that'd be so easy to take that job for a little while, you know, be comfortable, rebuild. But then the other side of me is like, dude, if I'm taking 40 to 50 hours of my week helping somebody else build their business, then I'm essentially neglecting mine and everything I've done, you know. And sometimes you got to bet on yourself. So when you guys went through that, the failure of your nonprofit, you just dove into going into more things and finding ways to continue to create income for yourself.
Yeah.
So how did you, what was the process, you know, you went through mentally in that whole thing? Like, how did you come to terms with, well, this thing failed, so now I'm just gonna go start doing all these other things?
Yeah, man. Here's the thing is that once you can set that mandate for your life, meaning that this is what I want to do at all costs, that's what that's really what your passion is, right? Your passion is the message or whatever it is that you want to do, that you're willing to die for, or what you're willing to suffer for.
Right.
And so when I set my mandate that one day I want to be amongst the greatest communicators and storytellers that this generation has ever seen, once you have that, right, now you start to, once I had to let go of that nonprofit, like I was married at the time. My wife and I both quit our jobs. We were married, and we both our jobs, and so we had to take few steps to go backwards. Like, we had to go and move to mom's house, you know, rent a room from her house, right? So that's super unsexy, but we still had to make those choices in order to sacrifice and see the big picture and still take the necessary steps to achieve my highest mandate, my biggest goal, my moonshot, right? So that took sacrifice. My wife said, okay, Cary, I believe in you and I believe in this so much that let me go and work while you build, you know, our end goal, right? So it was just having that communication path that was clear. Maybe the steps didn't look as sexy as, you know, as what Jeff Bezos may have right now, right? But we're so set on we had this intense burning desire of what our final outcome was, that we were able to do whatever necessary. And it sucked and it was embarrassing. And I had a ton of insecurities, telling my friends, oh yeah, by the way, I'm living at my mom's house right now, you know? But 9 years later, you know, those people are still where they're at. I'm not saying that they're happy or unhappy, but I'm much closer to where I say I wanted to be, you know? So even if you had to go and take a job, you don't have to dedicate 40, 50, 60 hours building that person's platform. You could still do, you know, whatever it takes, get your check, and then still build upon your dream. And that's the method that I took, you know, and it's 7-8 years into it. I'm where I am. And here's the thing is that I'm happy where I am, but I always keep myself like, I'm just too good to stay here. And it drives me much more to go further and further.
So what is your, you know, for yourself, what is your final destination of what you want to achieve? Like, where's your final, you know, where do you have to get to where you can sit down and say, I've achieved my goals. This is what I wanted.
Yeah. From a earthly standpoint, right? It's just literally, I want to have a media company that operates globally, meaning that I want to facilitate amazing content with deep context where my audience gets to see and take apart from inspiring people to take their wisdom so that they can apply their genius and create results for themselves. So if you take the concepts of like Oprah Winfrey or Gary Vee, and you
Right.
put some Mr. Miyagi into that, that would be me facilitating like day in the lives or behind the scenes on a much deeper scale of people who have mastered their craft, who are world shakers out there, and showing the day in the life and going deeper so that it provides a context for people to experience some personal breakthroughs.
That's awesome. So how can people follow your journey?
Man, rather than following me, man, I like to go deep with them, you know? So it's, they can find me directly at my email, Cary@caryhokama.com. I'm available through IG and Facebook.
What's your IG?
IG is Cary Does, because I only show what I do.
All right. And how do you spell your last name?
Hokama, and it's pronounced Hokama. Okay.
Did I butcher that?
You did, but you know what though? We boys, we've known each other a long time. We don't need to know our last names.
I have such a hard time with people's last names, man. And mine's a hard last name, which is why I never give anybody flack for it, because I'm like, dude, I'm not great with last names and I have a hard last name too. I get it.
And then Beseda, right? Beseda?
Beseda, yeah. You know, all the years I played sports, I would tell the announcers all the time what it was, and they never got it right. It's just like, whatever. It's not easy. I get it. You know, and one other thing too. You know, being an entrepreneur, you know, I think it's become something that's become really popular in the last 10 years maybe.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, you know, it's so interesting to still hear the statistics that, you know, 80% of people that go off into entrepreneurship don't make it a year. And I'm really big on talking about, like, dude, it's not easy. Like, there aren't, you know, Gary Vee, for instance, there's not a lot of Gary V's or Grant Cardones or Mark Cuban's. Like, I don't think people understand. For every one of them, there's got to be 10, 20,000 people that didn't make it. And it really is something that takes such driven, like you were just talking about, man, something that you're willing to just absolutely go 100% towards and almost be laser focused or single-sided on that one thing. I don't think most people truly understand that. Like, you know, I don't know what your kind of day looks like, but walk us through a day in your life. Like, what time do you get up, and how do you kind of structure your day, and how do you structure it around that goal of what your success is? Yeah.
So everyone thinks that, you know, we're all about getting no sleep and working 19 hours a day. And I've done that too, just only because I was under the notion that that's what you have to do to be a hardcore entrepreneur. A lot of the influencers are saying that, but if you notice that the tides have changed, you know what I mean? People are really looking into efficiency and really kind of simplifying your lifestyle. So what I've been doing is I wake up at 6 a.m, and the first 2 hours is just me investing in myself. And so what I always call is my power hour. So the first thing I do is I wake up, I meditate, I pray, and I journal, and I literally write down the things I want to manifest in my life. I talk about, you know, some of the emotions that I'm feeling, whether good or bad or whatever exists, so I can explore it. And so by the time 8 o'clock rolls around, the world starts to wake up, man, I am completely self-empowered. I have the confidence, and I write down maybe 3 to 5 major things that I just want to accomplish for that day. And so one thing would be, you know, doing that podcast with Stephen Beseda. Another one would be uploading one of my clips that I had from a speaking event, uploading it on YouTube. You know, and then the third big one would be to train my clients on FaceTime or Zoom, and then record myself and send it to the other ones who couldn't make it that day. Right. And once you're done by noon with those 3 major tasks, then I can go about my day and be the best husband that I can be, or be available for people, whether they want to chat on Zoom or FaceTime, and really feel accomplished and good, because I think so many people want to do so many things at one time that they're flustered, and then they're too tired to do anything. And so they go watch Netflix instead. You know, so So don't get me wrong. I've fallen down that path many times, but if you can just focus on the few things every single day, then that has a really good, what they call small hinges open big doors.
Right.
You know, focus on the few, not the many. And so for the past, those are the things that had allowed me to write a book. You know, those are that allowed me to been doing my podcast for 4.5 years with world-class leaders and entrepreneurs. You know, it's the little things to do it greatly. And that's what I've been focusing on most, is to just attack all the big tasks early on in the day, empower yourself in the morning, and then the rest of your day, you're really free to do whatever it is that you please without feeling guilty or ashamed or unaccomplished.
That's cool, man. That's great advice. I need to apply that in my life a little bit more often. The coronavirus has been great because it's really reset my life a lot. You know, I have to be so, man, pre-corona, I start my day at like 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
and I want to finish it till midnight. And it's not because I like to operate at that capacity. It's just, I didn't have a choice,
Right.
you know, because I'm one of those guys that I bit off a lot, and I had to really be good with my time delegation now, with so many of my, you know, just everything being closed down and stuff. It's been nice to sleep until 6 or 7 and wake up with my daughter and my wife. And I think even just for myself, kind of hit that reset where I'm able to be like, all right, you know, I need to really be smarter now. Like, not that I would say even smarter than I was, because I don't want to say I wasn't smart with my time and stuff. I feel like I just had bitten off so much. And now with the world literally changing, you know, it's been great for me just to look at that for my own life and say, hey, look, I can do things differently. You know, I don't have to be kind of like you said, you know, like I can get up and get my daughter breakfast, and my wife and I can do our devotions, and then I can kind of sit up and kind of set my day up as far as what I want.
Yeah.
All right, I'm not really sure what happened there.
It's all good.
But so, as a separate note, for those that are watching, I got kicked out of my house for a little while because of inspection going on, and I had to relocate outside, and apparently that's not the best place to be standing, so I'm gonna actually walk around here and get into my little garage where it should be a little better.
No, that's okay.
Anyways, we're good. So yeah, you know, I really do think that's such a great bit of advice for people. In it's not about working, you know, entrepreneurship is not about putting in 20-hour days. And I think that's 100% right. And I don't think that there's enough people speaking to that, which is, hey, you don't have to put in, and I guess part of it depends on industry too, right? Like, and where you're at in your business. Because for some people, like, you're going to still have those days you have to just put in, unfortunately. And then there's days you don't have to put that in, you know, and just being able to learn where that balance is for yourself and what that looks like. And man, I don't know about for you and the conversations that you have through your podcast with people that are entrepreneurs and how they're, you know, going through their journeys and stuff. But yeah, it can be such a challenging thing to figure out how to balance, right? And we're just figuring out, like, productivity. You know, how are you going to be able to maximize your productivity in X amount of hours? And I don't think a lot of people really focus on, like, when are you the most productive? Like, figure out when you're the most productive and block those 2 or 3 hours out, and then go for it and be super productive. And then give yourself the time to go get lunch, go on a walk, work out, whatever it is you need to do. And then maybe you have 1 more hour or 2 more hours in the day that you're super productive. Go for it. Be super productive, and then you can kind of play with your time accordingly. You know, I think that there is that I want to say image where, oh, well, I didn't make it if I don't have the Lamborghini in my garage and the $2 million, $5 million, whatever home, and I don't have the pool and this and that and everything. It's like, not everybody needs that, man. Like, what's the problem with just living a a more humble life that you're happy with, and being able to be available for the things you want to be available for. You know, I think it's good to have goals to strive for stuff, but I also think that materialistic things, you're not going to find the happiness you think you're going to find from them after the couple of weeks of having them, because it's just not, it loses its appeal after a time. And then you worked really hard for this, and then it wasn't fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being able to find that fulfillment in other things. And part of it, like for me, get lots of fulfillment just from relationships, you know, my friendships, my family, that kind of stuff. And I'd sacrificed some of that when I was growing my businesses. And now I've been able to go back to that. And with the COVID-19 virus, I think it's changed a lot of people's priorities too, you know, because I've heard people that used to be talking all the time about, man, I want to have, you know, all these materialistic things. And now it's just like, they're like, no, I want to have relationships with my grandparents again, or my family, or, you know, people, you know, I know that there's been a lot of people that have passed away, unfortunately. I think it's given people a new perspective in a lot of ways. And, you know, I'm so grateful just for being able to wake up next to my wife and daughter every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say for my daughter's almost 4, with the exception of the first 2 weeks I took off of work when we had our daughter. And the whole time I've never been consistent waking up next to my wife and daughter. I mean, I wake up, but they're still sleeping. You know, as a family, all of us getting to wake up together, and all of us getting to have breakfast together, and all of us getting to start our day together. Something I rarely got to do. So that's been really, really a blessing. It's been awesome. And so it's helped me refocus some of my own ideas of how I want to spend my time and how I want to allocate it out, for sure.
Most definitely.
Well, man, I really appreciate you taking time with me today and talking. And it's always good to catch up with you. And I really, you know, for those of you watching this, make sure you check this guy out. He's had quite the journey. One more thing before we wrap up, though. Tell them about the real Rick Ross.
Yeah, the real Rick Ross is from LA, and he's a Reformation activist pretty much, but the real Rick Ross was notorious for running one of the biggest crack cocaine empire back in the 80s. And he went away to prison. And it was during that time that the last 15 years or so that a corrections officer became a rapper and used Rick Ross because he thought it was cool. And so, you know, much love to both sides. They've taken, you know, whatever circumstances they wanted to create their own future and their realities, but that's who the real Rick Ross is. Freeway Rick Ross, and the rapper Rick Ross is a successful rapper, but he's got a complete different name. But hey, I'm not clowning on anybody here.
Well, you helped with that documentary for the real Rick Ross, didn't you?
I didn't help with the documentary, no.
Oh, because I met him through you. I thought you were involved for a little while with that whole thing.
We were involved in trying to get funding for an actual like huge movie.
Okay.
Yeah, his documentary came out, you know, later on, but we were in charge. We were trying. I was part of the team that was getting all the funds from South Korea to put together an actual biopic with some celebrity names. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. So
I did. So I saw the documentary, and I thought that was you, but you know, I watched it because I met him through you.
Crazy, cracking the system, right?
Yeah. That was a crazy documentary too, man. That was, oh man, that was something else, dude. That was really well done. Well, good. Well, I'm sorry to hear about that, but again, you know, you're trucking away and you're still finding that success, which is always encouraging. You never got down, you never gave up, and here you are, just kicking butt and taking names. I love it.
No, I got down plenty times, Steven. I just kept up.
Oh man,
I got down many times.
Well, you know, I appreciate it, my man. I appreciate your time, and you know, I just, for those of you that are trying to go out there and make a name for yourself, know that failure is part of it, and And sometimes failure is what gives you the best way to have a new perspective to find that success.
Yeah.
And don't give up. Just because you failed at something one time doesn't mean you're always going to fail. And I tell my kids, you know, that I coach, look, you fail your way to success. As a basketball player, you're constantly failing, and that's how you find success. And, you know, through high school, through college, I've got guys that play pro now. They failed their way through it. They just happened to stay consistent and keep working hard, and they kept up with believing in themselves. So I think that's really what the major difference is. And you've obviously shown that through what you've accomplished. And I appreciate your time, my man. And thank you, everyone watching this. This is Get It with Stephen Beseda. And please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel here. And you can see us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook as well, and on iTunes and Spotify if you want to just listen. And you're more than welcome to subscribe to those as well. And then if you're trying to get a hold of me, I respond to all my comments on my Instagram, which is going to be on the link below. And again, Cary, thank you so much, my man, and have a wonderful rest of your day, and stay safe during the reopening phase that we're finally getting to experience.
Can't wait, man. And I appreciate you. So let's get it and have a great day, brother.
You too, my man.
Peace.